All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here for episode 4, and episode 4 is all going to be about really understanding why you've tried so many strategies, why you've done so many different things, and this could be in any area of your life, your health, your business, your relationship, all these things. You've tried so many different things and different strategies and techniques, and none of them either work or stick. And the concept we're going to go through today is a really big one, but I want to bring it down to a place where it's very digestible. And we're going to do it in a really fun way where we just have a conversation about it that opens up the doors, because it took me about 2 years to really understand this concept. And we want to just make sure that you're having fun with this and enjoying it, right?
Right. Yes. Like we did yesterday.
Exactly.
We had a conversation about this yesterday, and it took me a little bit to wrap my brain around it. So I think this will be really great for people that this is a new concept.
Totally. Yeah, Andrew and we will have a conversation for about a half an hour, and then we realize we should just be recording. And, and we're like, this should have just been the podcast. Because this is real stuff. And I think a lot of people, I know for myself, and I know for you, Andrew, we are absorbing information all of the time. And we need to be aware of, like, are we really understanding it and knowing it and applying it into our lives? So that's kind of where I want to take this today and try to help all of you with this big one for me. So the concept we're going to dig into right now is called be, do, have. And let me just break it down first of where most people struggle when it comes to having a better health, having better relationships, having a better career or business or whatever it is. It all starts this way. They are going the opposite. So they're going at it from a have, do, be standpoint. And this is exactly how I was. So I am 100% in the boat with everybody else. And I'm sure Andrea can feel very similar to that as well. Would you agree?
I actually think I'd argue that there's not anyone that has not been in this place before. Sure. And it's something you don't even realize you're doing. So just, again, we always talk about being aware.
Yep.
And stopping that thought process. So this is awesome to bring light to it.
Yeah, not judging yourself. And that's why we started episode 1 with the judgment and discernment, because I feel like a lot of people will listen to stuff and then they internalize it like, well, why is that me? So we're going to get into a lot more around the subconscious as we go along in this whole journey. And I also wanted to let all the listeners know I have little ones, and they may be popping up at any point in time during our entire podcast journey together. So just throwing it out there, just kind of getting it off my chest, and I think that's as real as it gets, right?
So, I mean, and I have bigger ones, and they might be getting ready for soccer and stuff behind me. So again, that could have been a deterrent to not record today, but you know what?
Totally.
Such is life.
And that's what I think happens to a lot of people. They're like, this is the segue into it right now.
Exactly.
I need to have my kids out of the room and out of the house and not screaming in the background so that I can do this podcast, right, so that we can be able to help more people. Now, if we took that approach, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And we could apply that to everything. So this is how a lot of people go. They go have, do, be, rather than be, do, have. And it's backwards because, well, let's do another example. So let's do health, for example. So a lot of times, and this really applies to everything. I need to have more time. I need to have more money. I need to have more skills. I need to have more connections. I need to have more people that will go and do this with me, right? Whether it's exercise or whatever it is. I need to have insert whatever.
What about the, I need to have my health in a better place in order to start?
Totally. Hear that one a lot, right?
I get that all the
yeah,
time.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to be in better shape in order
Yes.
to go and start this journey.
Yes.
And so when we start with the haves, we really understand that comes back to one of our last episodes where we talked about stories. It's just a story, an illusion that's stopping you from the next phase, which is the doing. Because we're like, if I have this thing, then I'll do more exercise. I'll do more sleeping. I'll do more networking. I'll do more, insert whatever you need to wait to have before you do it.
It could even be effort. I will be more conscious. I will be more committed, right?
Yep.
The emotional piece of it.
So, and then people go into, then I'll be successful. Then I'll be committed. Then I'll be motivated. Then I'll be whatever. And so they're waiting. This is where we're waiting, ready to get ready. That waiting, paralysis by analysis. They're waiting for something to happen in their external world, this external circumstance, this thing outside of themselves. They're waiting to have something in place in order to do something so they can be something. And the thing is that will never happen because people will not do the things until they have them. So we can see how backwards this is.
Right.
I think that was good. Good. That was the best way I think I've explained it.
I know, maybe it's better we recorded today.
Very good.
So, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about when you're trying to teach someone how to swim, right? Sometimes you just
go deeper. Yeah.
You have to just have to jump in.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're like, well, I need to have the skills to swim. Nobody has the skills to swim before they get in the water. They have floaties. Now, we highly recommend, Andrea and I, at this show, that you have floaties if you don't know how to swim. Safety first, folks.
Sure.
And then once you're in and you're learning it and you're doing it, but you could throw another one in there. I need to have a swim instructor in order to learn. Could do a lot of things. So we get stuck in the have, do, be. So if we flip it, and just one more point on that is that we think if we have and we do, and oh my goodness, I was a constant doer, do more. And it was never an alignment with the way that I was being. So what happens is that you may be somebody out there that has taken massive action. And action is fantastic as long as it's in alignment with the way that you're being. Because if your mind and the way that you're being and your identity and your self-image and all of these things aren't in alignment with what you're doing, you're going to stop, or you're going to have so much resistance that you're going to burn out. And that's where people are trying to willpower and grit this. Willpower doesn't work, folks. It's a finite resource. So we need to push through in a way that isn't in resistance to us. And the way we do that is by focusing on the way that we're being. So let's get into the flip side of this. Let's flip this around.
I like it.
So now, if you focus on the be, do, have, and you're focusing on the way that you're being first, then you're going to do a lot more. And you're going to do it in a place where there's less resistance and there's more alignment. And then you're going to have so much more success and so much more everything that you want. A lot of people, they do things because of the way that they think the result is going to make them feel. Right? Happiness, health, whatever it is. So let's talk about being. And being is just the way that we're showing up in the world. Being is the things that we do without really necessarily thinking about it. I mean, Andrea and I, we live in Massachusetts, and I don't know if you've seen these people, Andrea, but they giant snowstorm, right? We call it a Noista
Yeah.
up here, and you have this giant snowstorm, and there will be a person outside running in the snowstorm. And you're like, what are they doing? And the thing about this individual is that they never thought to not do that because it's who they are at a core level. It's the way they're being. They put their shoes on, they got outside, they realized, hey, there's a snowstorm going on. And this is the way that it works, is that they are being a person that does what they do, and then they just have what they have.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Could you maybe use intention there? Intention for your goal, because again, I'm still grasping this concept, so I'm sure a lot of the people listening will. So this runner has the intention, they have a goal, and they've decided that maybe they know, okay, like if I really want to do this, I'm going to come up against all kinds of obstacles, snow being one of them. And they just have the intention of being the runner. Maybe they're training for Boston, right?
Totally.
So the attention, is that like another way to?
Yeah. And we all set an intention, right? When we're trying to go and do something, we're like, I want to have better health. I want to have less weight on my body. I want to have more money in my pocket, whatever it is. And the intention is important. It's definitely important to set that. And it's more, and we'll get into kind of ways that we look at this. So let's start with being, and it's really about awareness. That's step one, folks. Step one is awareness of how you're being, because many of us have no idea of how we are being, how we are showing up, or we might know. Well, this is the thing. They don't know why they're not getting the result. And the result may be a cause of their being, the way that they're being. And so it's really looking at, how am I being? So I'm going to use one example because this is a big one that I find a lot of the people I work with struggle with at the very beginning. And being self-integral is an example of one. So that's a person that's being a person who keeps promises to themselves. So if you have it's really the intention and in commitment. So being a person who's committed to keeping promises to themselves. Because when you are committed, you'll do it. It's a must. So no matter what, you make it happen. Mm-hmm. Any of you out there that are parents, you just do it because it's who you are. You are being a parent because that's who you are at a core identity level. And that's part of your self-image. And it creates your doing, and then you have whatever you have after that. So it starts with the being of it all.
And so I just want to add something there. We talked about this yesterday. So we're on the topic of parenting. Let's remember, none of us were ready to be a parent. None of us knew how to be a parent. We were scared to be parents. You can't even prep to be a parent, but we did it anyway.
The best question you get before you have kids is, are you ready? And you're like, no.
Oh.
Some people, I think we think we're ready. And then you have children and it's not what you think it is.
Right.
Like I thought I was ready. And then your children are going to test you to a massive degree. So you need to be a person that you need to be willing. You need to be ready, willing, committed, and invested in being a parent. So those are ways of being as you show up as a parent.
And showing up for yourself.
That's another thing. A lot of times what happens, this is so good. A lot of times what happens is you're being really committed to yourself and your own goals and all those things when you're alone before kids. And then all of a sudden, this amazing human being comes into the world, and you have this unconscious thought that I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that this human has the best life possible. And sometimes that makes it so that you're being more impeccable with your word and more integral when it comes to helping them and serving them than it is to you. So you've changed your values, and we're absolutely saying show up for your kids, take care of them, do all those things. And you can't do that unless you are taking care of yourself and putting your oxygen mask on first.
So as a mom, and I know that there are moms listening because most of my girls are moms. So when you are a mom, a new mom, or maybe a mom like me that's been a mom for years and years, think about after you had your kids and you thought, oh, I'll get to myself. I'll take care of myself. I'll do that when
I'll wait till I have more time.
Yes.
So that's the have do be. So that's a great one, Andrea.
So the oxygen mask, really, we forget completely because this person, these kids, they consume us because we've never loved something so much. And that's the beauty of it. But we have to go ahead.
What you just hit on there was so huge. And this is one of the biggest ones that I come up with is you said we love them so much. And a lot of the times we need to remember that we need to love ourselves just as much. That's one of the bigger ones that I work on with clients when we do rapid transformation therapy, is that self-love, self-worth, confidence, and capability, that it is important to love you in this journey, or I mean, we lose ourselves in this process of becoming this another amazing human being. Being a parent, folks, is an amazing thing. It's also one of the more character building things that you can do in your life, right?
I love that.
It really
is.
Because I didn't want to use the word hard. I didn't want to use the word challenging, because it's absolutely, if you sign up for this, it's going to be something that will change you it will just change you, and it will change the way that you're being. And so that's where point number one is so important. You have to be aware of how you're being. Are you putting everyone's self first? Are you being a pleaser for everyone else? Are you spending 95% of your time trying to please others and do everything for others, or avoid conflict? And that's another one that a lot of people are going through. You raised your hand there, Andrea.
I do, because my avoider and my pleaser are two of my biggest saboteurs that completely derail me in all life.
Yeah.
Business, home, relationship. So
that's so important. And that leads to kind of part two of tip number one, is being aware of it, and then forgiving and letting go of it. So letting go of this identity that we have taken on. Because I was talking to my mom yesterday, actually, and I was saying, your kids run in the house and you're doing a work thing or whatever, and they'll come into the dining room where you're doing work, and they'll interrupt you and they'll just start trying to solve their problem. And are you setting the boundaries in the place where, are you being a person who sets boundaries that allows them to come in and you can eventually help them and all those things? And in her mind, it was like, well, they're going to be out of the house soon. I'm going to lose their love if I don't attend to this right in this moment. And these are the stories we tell ourselves. So then we don't set boundaries, and we don't feel like we're enough to set boundaries. And we have all of I guess you would put that into the mom guilt perspective. Would you say that would fall into that?
I definitely would. And I think I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I have a client who unfortunately had a bout of cancer. And because of that, she started to value her life as a priority.
Yeah.
But it took that. Imagine.
And that's what happens to a lot of people there. That's a really important point to make, is that we're waiting to have these things, to do these things, to be these things. And then we have health scares that come up. And then we're forced into being a certain way. We're forced in, and there's a lot more resistance in that. So if we can start being a new place being a new way, in a place of empowerment and really standing in it for ourselves, rather than pain, worry, fear, lack, all of those things, which is what motivates a lot of people. They push into it, and then it just creates too much resistance, and then they don't end up being that way. So it's starting with awareness, folks, and letting go of that, and letting go of the things and do it with discernment, not judgment. This is just a lot of this stuff is subconscious, and it's been, quote unquote, keeping us safe, right? Your mind's number one job is to keep you safe. And it's been trying to do that for so long, so that it has you being a certain way, because it thinks that that's what's working, even though when you feel miserable, stuck, and frustrated in it. So use some discernment and empathize with yourself, folks. Empathize with yourself, and say, you know what? I've been being this way, maybe for my whole life, or maybe for a very long time. And you can choose to change that and start being a new way. And when you pick the way that you need to start being, so one of the bigger ones when I was younger was being 100% I remember when I first opened my first business, I realized one of the ways that I would need to be in order to be successful and have success is being 100% responsible. 100% responsible. And when I did that, what that does is that when you show up with that way of being, then you have all the power to change it. You're not giving your power away to others that are like, well, I'm not, it's Susie did this, or I didn't, this happened, and all these things, right? Are there going to be fluke things and crazy things in your life? Yes. We're going to talk about vibration and frequency and all that and future things, but it's really right now thinking about being 100% responsible. And when I did that, I was able to have the power to change anything in my business, in my life, and being 100% responsible for both the negative and positive, and knowing that even the negative is a gift. It's something that's pushing me in the way that I need to actually be going. And then that brings it back to the awareness.
I love that. So jump in.
Yeah. So what do you think is a key way in your life that you feel like is so important to be? What's helped you?
Well, present.
There's another way, great way of being. Absolutely. And have you noticed that that's changed with the amount of technology that pops up in all of our lives, and the phones and this and that and the other thing, and the busyness of this as you've evolved?
Definitely. And I think that that's not changing.
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere. So more than ever, we really have to be aware of that.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's so easy to get sidetracked. You can it's a time suck. So yeah, being present, and actually, for me, I'm a paper girl all the way. If I am not making a list, I'll be honest, sometimes I'm not accountable to myself.
Yep.
So for me, that is key. I wish I could do the phone thing, but again, then I'm in my phone.
Yeah.
And a message will pop up, and then I'll go to that. So I love the paper, because I can still check it off and be accountable that way. And I have a really hard time staying accountable to myself.
But you just said being accountable, and that aligns with your being a planner, being somebody who plans to do things to have success,
Yes.
which is important. I mean, a lot of people have trouble with having success in health, business, life, all these things, because they're not doing the things because they never planned them. They weren't being a person who plans them. And was 100% me. I was a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. I always say me and my wife have a beautiful relationship, and the things that I think we both do is like, I always call myself a race car driver, and she's a massive planner. And I drive so close to the edge of life that she sees things that maybe she would never have seen, but she plans to make sure I don't drive off the cliff. So
it's a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful. And that's what makes it really work for both of us. And I've seen how powerful the planning piece is. So I have adopted a lot of that, because it's super important to so many of the areas of our lives. So we have the awareness, we have letting go of the things that the ways we were being. Then we focus on, all right, how are we going to be? Picking one and just stepping into that. And the third piece to this puzzle is repetition. Our mind learns by repetition. When you start trying to be a new way, the mind's going to be like, that's not the way you are. That's not you. And that's where belief and all of the identity piece comes in, where you have to believe that this can work and this can happen, and that you can change. We are not static beings, folks. We're just not. We are not static beings. We're always evolving. So one of my least favorite sayings of all time is, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I do not like that saying. People take that saying and they apply it to human beings. Human beings are not dogs. And they're not static beings. It's not helpful.
Right.
It's not helpful.
No.
And I'm not even sure that that's true. I don't know if you might be able to teach an old dog new tricks. We don't know.
We don't.
I don't personally know.
Maybe just that saying alone has embedded in our minds that we can't, right?
Totally. There's a lot I came across this the other day. There's a lot of sayings out there. There's a lot of quotes out there that are not the full quote, that are not the full thing. And when you read the whole thing, it creates a whole new meaning. This happened to me the other day with a quote, and of course I can't remember the whole thing off the top of my mind. But it's like, just be careful of what you're accepting, folks, into your mind. Jim Rohn says, stand guard at the doorway of your mind. And it's just being aware of what's coming in and what you're accepting as true. What are you accepting as true?
And how about it is what it is? No.
Well, that's giving up. So, and there's multiple sides of that, right? There's so many sides of that, because that's also based on belief and stories and all of that stuff. One of my favorite sayings is amor fati. It stands for in love with fate. And some people don't believe in fate. And I think that our lives, that we're going through our lives, I think you could change your fate. And I think that there's also a way to evolve as human beings and really go into this. What that really means is it's loving what's happening no matter what, because everything can be a gift, even the hard stuff. And I think about that all the time when I pick up my 4-year-old, because there was 2 miscarriages before him. And it makes me realize that when you're in this moment of complete despair and just feeling like there's no hope, that there's something that may be happening on the outside that is coming your way, that you don't even see yet. So that's where a lot of people are waiting. They're waiting to have something, to do something, to be something. They're waiting to see that it's going to work. It's going to happen. Everything, we're looking for reassurance because our minds love safety, certainty, predictability. They love it. And that's what keeps us stuck in the same old habits and the same old stuff, because our minds love that.
That is a great, great way. That was a great way to lay that out right there, because I had also 2 miscarriages, and it's the same thing. You have to find the good. So we were talking about that third piece. And when you show up and you're acting differently, being and
acting, this is the cool part. Ooh, this is so good, Andrea. Right. So being and doing are 2 different things, folks.
Right.
So it's a lot of times we'll revert back, and this was totally me. This is why this took me so long, because I was like, oh, well, I'm doing these things, so I must be being this way. Wrong. I was not. Because I would always revert back to my old way of being.
And so tell me, when you started to change that behavior, how did the people around you receive that?
Different per person. Everyone's going to receive it differently, because they have an idea, because you're really changing as a person. Now, this is where people will get stuck when they hear this episode. They'll be like, well, I don't want to lose X, Y, and Z, right? It's not about losing. That comes back to the first point. It's letting go of the things that aren't serving you. Some of the things, when you start being a new way, you'll find that they are actually some of the things that are holding you back. Those start to pop up, and you start to really see them. So you had a good question, and I feel like I'm trying.
How did people receive you?
Right. Yep. Got it.
Doing the things to be,
Yeah. So I always say that I'm going to use boundaries as example. When you start setting boundaries, the only people that get frustrated and care about you having boundaries are the people that were taking advantage of the fact that you didn't have boundaries.
I love that.
And the people that weren't doing that, they're not going to care. They're not going to mind. You're going to find, when you change the way that you're being, you're going to find that a lot more people are going to just see you differently. They're going to show up to you differently, because you're changing the way that you think, you're changing the way that you feel, and you're changing the way that you act. And that's vibration, folks. You're creating a new vibration. So if you're changing the way that you think, if you're in your mind, you know what? I am a person who keeps promises to myself. That feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to act on that. Exactly.
Might inspire someone.
Absolutely. And I say this a lot, where it's like, we as parents are like, well, I need to always put them first and blah, 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 blah. But your kids are watching all the time. They're way more absorbed by what they see you do rather than what you tell them, especially as they get older. Would you say that's true, Andrea?
Oh my gosh. And I have to just insert this, because most of my training I do online with moms. Yeah. And during COVID, I was forced to bring my business completely via Zoom. And there was a chance for people to say, I can't do that because I don't have the space. My kids are home, yada, yada. I have dogs, whatever. And I have a client that she shows up still to this day. She'll show up if she has a sick kid at home. It does not stop her. Her kids have come in and worked out with us.
How would you say she's being?
She's putting herself first. She's being committed.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, what a better role model for her kids, because her kids will join her in the living room and watch her, and they'll mimic. They're not listening to me. They're watching their mom mimic what I've taught her to do.
For sure.
That could have been
I'm getting chills. That's power. It's so powerful. It's so powerful.
What a gift, right?
That's the stuff right there. And it's because she's being that way. And I mean, I have done so much research on child development and how their brains work and how the chance of a child being more active later in their life or eating healthier later in their life, a lot of that is based on how their parent is being.
And her mom, just to show you the trickle effect, this particular gal's mom was super active, still is.
So cool. Yeah.
So
isn't it
that
interesting?
ripple effect.
Generational for sure.
Mhm.
So, but this is good and this is important. So understanding though, that if that is not the case for you, that the subconscious flow has continued to go for you, and it has not been the case, some people instantly go into the story or the belief, well, then I can't change it. And that is not true. It is not true.
It's not.
You can. And it starts with deciding, choosing to be a different way. And that is why the be do have is so powerful. I want to wrap this up because we could literally keep going on be do have. We'll probably do this will come up multiple times. We just needed to put it here. And I thought this was really great. And the takeaway today is really being aware. And then how do you want to be? And then repetition, practice it. Being aware. And then if that's not working for you, how do you want to be? Repetition, practice it. And don't beat yourself up if you're flowing in and out. We call that disintegration anxiety. It's like you're battling with your past identity and self. That'll be a whole nother topic as well. And it's just be do have, folks. You will be blown away. And if you keep going down this rabbit hole and looking at it, and because I knew when I first heard it, I was like, this makes so much sense. And yet I needed to continue to practice the repetition of it and going back to how am I being? I asked myself that question, actually. That's a great way to do this. How am I being today? How am I being?
And sometimes you don't even have to ask. You feel it.
You feel it. It's a vibration, right? Thinking, feeling, and acting.
Awesome.
Love it. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it and give us an honest rating on wherever you're checking this out, on iTunes or Spotify or any of the other places. And we would love if you have any questions or things that you feel like you want us to dig in deeper on. Please message us, send us emails. You can send it at matt@thepotentialyou.com, and we will gladly be able to help you out in any way we can. We want to continue to serve and help so many people out there. And the way that we do that is through, if you've got benefit from this, somebody else probably will as well. So just sharing this with others and creating this community and this higher vibration. All right, folks, you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you on the next episode.